All right, thanks. Well, good morning, everyone, and members of the public that may be joining us virtually. This is March 9th and the Long-Term Committee of Management meeting. I'll call this meeting to order and just remind the members of their obligation to declare a pecuniary interest or an interest. Seeing nothing, if anything should arise, you may declare it at that time. We have a number of reports. We have the long-term care CM 0621 report, operational report to the Committee of Management for the period of December 15th, 2020 to February 14th, 2021, be received for information. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Burley and seconded by Councillor O'Leary. Jennifer, are you going to through this report?
I'll start, Mr. Chair. So through you, this is our operational report. And as we make our way through this project together of reporting and sharing information, we're making changes and tweaks to the report. So you'll see that it's a little bit different than it has been historically. And we've added some information that was previously in closed session into the open session. And so you'll see that and we'll take you through that. So it's going to be, all of us are going to take part in making the presentation. So I'm introducing the report and then I'll hand it over to Renata, who's going to give an update on the quality section.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Jennifer. Renata, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The CI-high data has not been released prior to this report, so the indicators remain the same. The teams in the care communities have finished their annual program reviews, and Dana and I will be working with them to develop quality improvement plans to address the areas in red, along with keeping the areas in green where they are or improving them as well. The resident family satisfaction survey results were received, and overall the residents and families are satisfied with the care and would recommend the homes to others. Words that the families used and the residents to describe were caring, excellent, friendly, and they were very happy with the care in general. The care communities have their own results and are working through, and we will use this information at strategic planning at the end of the month to develop the quality improvement plan. Are there any questions?
Well, Renata, it was heartwarming to see the customer satisfaction surveys. 98% of families feeling that their loved ones are giving the care and support that they're looking for. So it made me feel really good to see that, and 90% for the customer satisfaction too. So kudos to everyone. What a wonderful job. And we've heard this time and time again, but this it's nice having those survey results. It confirms what I think we already knew. So is there questions from the committee members? Councillor Robinson, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everyone. Renata, I'm really happy to hear that there will be a quality service report that will be generated. And first of all, I just want to double check. Can everybody hear me? Okay, because I'm getting some feedback, so thank you. So Renata, I was wondering what key indicators you would be using to identify the milestones and the successes for the plan over the full year. And in addition, will you be factoring in any of the information through this past year dealing with COVID? Thank you very much.
Yes, some of the key indicators will be around clinical care, which will be skin and wound and falls, and then recreation will be satisfaction with activities. We will also be looking at overall satisfaction will be another key indicator. Financial will be another key indicator. So that's an example of what we'll be looking at. We will definitely be looking at all the 5 programs that are in the Ministry of Health regulations, and those will be key indicators as well. So that's pain and falls and behaviors. I'm sorry, I forgot. What did you say for the last part of the question? I'm sorry, Christine.
Well, it's been a very comprehensive answer so far, so thank
Okay.
you. Just wondering if you would also fold in any indicators for what you've experienced through COVID. Thank you.
Oh, yes, definitely through our infection control and the improvements we've made, there will be indicators that will be included in the audits. We will pull data from that. So there will definitely be key indicators from the pandemic as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one supplemental.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Renata, will this plan be for all 3 long-term care homes, or will there be different successes and indicators per home? Thank you.
Thank you. There will be an overall plan for the 3 homes and then individualized plans for the 3 homes with successes geared to the homes specifically.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing nothing. Carry on, Renata.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
Or I guess we're going to Shannon now for Grey Gables.
Renata, are you?
I'm finished. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I'll move us through into the critical incidents. I will just also mention, if I might, to Councillor Robinson, that we are also part of a working group, an evaluation group working on our designated care partner program. And that's specific to the pandemic and what has the impact of safely allowing designated care partners, so family members, into the home to support residents. How we're looking to have evidence to back up what we believe is that has helped with social isolation and some of the other challenges that have come with living in a congregate setting during a pandemic. And so we'll have more information on that in the coming months.
Thank you. Wonderful.
So moving into the critical incident summary report. So this is a new report, a new chart to this operations report. And we did just have some conversation about this in our last meeting in the closed report. And so now we will be summarizing this information in this way, going forward in these operational reports. And so all of the information is there for each of the homes of the mandatory critical incidents that we're required to report to the province, and then a summary of the outcomes. If there are any questions, each of the EDs are here to provide answers, and if we need to dig deeper into some of them, we may need to go into closed session depending on the specific question and what the incident is. So I'll leave it at that. And if there's any specific questions, then we can go from there.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions specific to any of the critical incidents that any members have? Not seeing anything, Jennifer. Thanks for that information.
Okay, great. Thank you. And
Oh,
so,
I do. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
I do
sorry,
see Warden Hicks.
Warden Hicks has his hand. Go ahead, Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just, anybody can look at this report. It's a very public document. I think I know the answer, but I think I should ask the question anyways, just for the sake of any public member looking at this report. So if you look at this report and you see 4 incidents of abuse or neglect for Rockwood and 2 unexpected deaths, how do you explain that? Like, what is the explanation for that? And should we, as a committee, be alarmed or concerned? Should we be taking this more seriously?
right. Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. So I think that we could have some discussion about what would make this chart maybe more useful or have available information for the public. All of these critical incidents will have been investigated or followed up by the ministry, and there will be an inspection report linked with them. The timing can be challenging, anywhere from within weeks of an incident happening to within 18 months of an incident happening for the ministry to do their follow-up visit and report. So we could look at seeing if we could link any inspection reports with it that would then kind of close that loop to say it's been inspected and there was no areas of concern, or there were an area noted where there could be an improvement or an action plan required. The EDs are available to give a high-level summary of those situations, and we will just need to kind of work together to sort out how to best reflect them and discuss them in a public way, so that we're maintaining our transparency but not putting any private information of residents or potentially staff at risk.
Right, so Mr. Chairman, I guess that's where I'm heading. And don't see the question as a challenge at all,
No.
because as I said, I'm privy to more information than the public is. But if the public is looking at this document and they see, I'm maybe picking on Rockwood, I suppose, but if I see, 4 cases of abuse and neglect, and I see 2 unexpected deaths, if I'm a member of the public and I don't have the information that maybe some of the people around this table have, I might have concerns. So how do we address those legitimate concerns that someone just looking at a report like this might have?
It's a really good point, Mr. Warden, because, when you see, 4 allegations of abuse and no follow-up information, it is a good question. And how do we make sure that the general public knows how well we're operating our homes? Kim, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm not going to answer the question. I don't think I'm going to add to the complexity of all of this, but I think this information is all posted publicly on those ministry inspection sites. So this information has always been available to the public, more or less in this format too, I think. Where by bringing it forward in our reports are just making it that much closer to local folks. But our homes inspection reports and all homes inspection reports are posted for everyone to see, and it does have that information. So I don't know what you do about that, because we're, I don't know if Advantage or anyone has a position on this at all, Jen, but it is something that has been brought up and has been, I think, used in media reports and that, and sometimes, kind of in a way meant to sway opinion one way or another, without necessarily being entirely transparent about what's behind the findings that are there. So I'm just acknowledging the fact that it is a concern and a problem, but all long-term care homes are kind of in the same spot.
Yes, but
I'm just wondering, Kim and Jennifer, should the committee be going into camera, to review and just get a high-level overview of each one of these incidents, so that the committee members have a comfort that they've been, followed through? I'm not sure the answer to that, but I think Councillor O'Leary had his hand up. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just question why the unexpected death is even there. I mean, like, if someone takes a heart attack and dies, that has to be unexpected. If they go to sleep at night and don't wake up in the morning, that has to be unexpected. It's a long-term care home. Does it even have to be there?
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair, and Councillor O'Leary, and I will probably defer to Dana. The unexpected death is a critical incident, and it is a defined circumstance that needs to be reported to the ministry. The what makes up an unexpected death, there's been differing opinions and from different coroners, and we've had different instructions or follow-up depending on the coroner and or the ministry inspector. And so while this report was being put together and the timing of this report, Dana has reached out to the chief coroner's office to get some direction and some more kind of formalized guidelines. And so we believe that those numbers will be more aligned with across all three homes, and we'll be using the same definition across all three homes. But there is certain circumstances that do meet the category of an unexpected death, even in long-term care.
Other questions? Christine, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just getting back to the type of critical incident. So when I was looking at this chart, I too had some questions in terms of the number with regard to abuse and neglect and unexpected death, but there is an explanation category right next to it, which is identified as outcome. So I felt that, at least for my reading and knowledge, I felt that identified how the matters were seriously addressed and the path forward. So is there, as a committee, do we feel that this is enough information, and certainly to Jennifer and the executive directors in a public forum, is this enough information that will answer any questions that we can, or is there some other form of improvement? Anyway, I felt that had enough information, but again, I defer to Jennifer and her professional staff as well as this committee for further dialogue. Thank you.
Jennifer, so if it shows up as a critical incident, so is it confirmed then that it's not just an allegation, it's a confirmed, like with abuse, for example, there's been 4 abuses, or is it just an allegation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that question. We are required to report any allegation of abuse or neglect, or an allegation of a medication incident. So they're not confirmed, they're allegations. As soon as we have any reason to believe there is a possibility of a situation, we're required to submit a report. So there could be 18 allegations, and none of them following our own internal review. Sometimes, depending on the allegations, the police are involved, following their review. The ministry does a follow-up inspection. Often, there's no finding of abuse or neglect. Sometimes, and quite often, there's opportunity for education and further discussion and that type of response. But often, there's no confirmed abuse has taken place. And so perhaps there's some more information we could put at the beginning of this section to outline that these are critical incidents that are required to be reported, and then a little bit more. And I'm not sure if Heather has anything to add to this. She was doing a review across the province of other municipalities and how they report similar information to their boards.
I think, Heather, you've just been put on the spot.
I have. That's okay, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Jen's absolutely right. We're trying to be, we wanted to bring this information to the committee, being more transparent. The clerk staff, we looked at a number of other areas that have committee of management and how they're reporting. And this really does align with some of our other peers and counterparts and how they align, and still maintaining our accountability and transparency with our processes.
And I think, just further what the warden was saying, when you see a number there, the public not, having all the information that we have might, read into that there was 4 abuses, and that's not necessarily accurate. It might just be an allegation. So, John, I think Councillor Woodbury had his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to further to what Jen was saying about the kind of filling out the introduction to that, or the sentence above. If we just had something to the effect of any and all allegations are investigated and acted on, you know, something kind of fill that out a little bit, I'm not saying write a book before it, but just a little bit, then that gives them the opportunity to say, oh, okay, anything that happens. So these aren't necessarily all, even if we had say it, and allegations are not proven at this time. Like that's the way we used to have to do it on the fire department a lot. You'd kind of have the short preamble, and we'd also have the little bit of this is a picture in time, just so that it was kept in perspective.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? I think this is a work in progress, so we will look forward to further information and maybe more clarity. But I do think, just when you observe the numbers alone, it doesn't give a full picture, and the members of the committee may need a fuller picture, going forward. So, anything else from committee members?
Mr. Chair.
Continue on, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Sorry, Barb, go ahead. Sorry.
I wasn't sure you were acknowledging me. Thank you for that. And certainly following Kim's remarks as well, and about the tendency, or not the possibility of this being misconstrued in the public, I fully appreciate and agree that an explanation of allegations and what that means is that it may or may not have actually resulted in an injury or a death. I think that would be very, very helpful at the beginning as an introduction to this, because the professionals will know and will understand what that means, but the general public will not, and will look at allegation. Well, what does that mean? Looking at the outcome of 2, no allegations are substantiated. Does that mean there were no allegations, or does that mean that those allegations were not substantiated? So I think that moving into that more explanation, just slightly more explanation at the beginning, would be very, very helpful and useful in the public's understanding and acceptance of the realities that we're dealing with. But it's a tough road you have, and we know what's happening generally speaking, but speaking from the public perception, I think that would be very beneficial.
Good points, Barb. Christine?
Thank you. Just a quick point, and I just put this as a suggestion. On this chart, is there an opportunity to move the outcome or the result category in advance of the data, the numbers? And that way you're identifying that the type of critical incident, and then the categories. But if we have the outcome or the result as the next category, I think it identifies that here's an issue, here's how it was managed, and the path forward. And then following that is the data points after that. Food for thought. I'm just, as a reader of data, sometimes I like to know what the issue is, what is the end result of, even if it's recommendations to move forward, and then the data points. Anyway, just thought it might be helpful. And certainly, Jennifer, I always defer to you and the executive directors. Thank you.
So Jennifer and all of our executive directors, have you had enough feedback from the committee members to try and tweak this going forward?
Yes, I think we have, and we appreciate the feedback, and it's all in the spirit of transparency, and I think it's good. We'll get there, and it's important that the public have a sense of, the fact that that there is reports happening. The province does follow up. We take them seriously, and we need to be able to demonstrate that. So appreciate the feedback. We may even be able to link. Direct people to that website that Kim speaks of, that lists all of our inspection reports. If someone's that interested, then let's make it easy for them to go and have a look at it and see what work is happening in the homes. So thanks everyone for that.
Thank you.
So Karen is going to give an update on the ministry inspections that happened. And I need to apologize. I forgot to let the committee know that Stacy, Executive Director at Lee Manor, is sends her regrets. She's attending a negotiation day with her team and Lee Manor. So I apologize for letting everybody know why she's not around the Zoom table. So Karen's going to speak to inspection.
All right, thanks. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That is you, Karen, right?
Yes, that was as a result of a different inspection. Anyway, the ministry was in both Lee Manor and Rockwood over the past or during the reporting period. The investigation at Lee Manor, I believe, was covered in our last meeting because it had happened or was just finished at that time. Had an inspector in late in January to review critical incident follow-up. And she also completed an infection control review or audit while she was here. And there were no areas of non-compliance as a result of her visit. And I think Shannon is going to take it from here.
All right, thanks very much, Karen. Any questions of Karen before we move on? Councillor O'Leary, go ahead, Brent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious to know the relationship with these inspectors and staff when they come in to do their inspections. Are they like a bunch of drill sergeants, or do they sit down and have a decent conversation? And what are they like? Tell us about the conversation.
Okay, be careful on the response.
I would say they're generally very good. They try to put the staff at ease, but they do go out and want to talk to the staff and residents. But they try to put them at ease, but they need information, and their goal is to collect that information at the end of the day. So they get results. Often they comment as part of their exit interview about how welcoming and accommodating staff were. To help them find the information they were looking for. So overall, it's a bit unnerving. They're pretty good to make everyone feel at ease.
Great. Thanks, Karen.
Karen, do you find that they typically have the necessary experience to be able to do their job effectively?
Yes, I would say so. Often they have worked in long-term care. So they are understanding of not only the legislation, but the reality of the day-to-day operation as well.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you. Okay, we'll turn it over to Shannon now.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So during this reporting period, and further to Renata's report on the satisfaction survey, you will see that we've had many activities taking place in the care communities and lots of opportunities for resident engagement. Although COVID has presented challenges to traditional programming and delivery methods, our recreation team continues to implement exciting and innovative events across the 3 care communities. Christmas was another example of having to adapt and think outside the box to deliver meaningful opportunities for residents. Although Grey Gables and Rockwood Terrace were not able to have their annual Christmas bazaar to bring in the holiday season, they instead created a Christmas market for residents to enjoy a holiday shopping experience. Residents at Lee Manor made fun, festive eye movies that gave the residents the opportunity to be Hollywood stars. They also replaced the annual Christmas, Northern Christmas Lights tour with a virtual experience. One of the many highlights for the residents at Grey Gables is when Santa showed up on horseback, spreading Christmas cheer to all the residents by looking out their windows. In addition to the monthly themed events, all care communities continue to provide daily activities for the residents to participate in, and we are able to color it for the residents with one-on-one visits for those residents who don't wish to participate in group activities. We are very proud of the program staff who continue to explore new ways to deliver programs and brighten spirits during these challenging times. And if there's any questions, I'll take them, or I'll pass it back to Karen.
Thanks, Shannon, for the update. Any questions from committee members? Seeing nothing, okay, carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to highlight, if you haven't had a chance to look at the 2020 year in review video. If you recall, those of you who were on the committee last year, we shared the 2019 video with you, and it was so successful. The program staff did it again. So it was exciting to see that we could still have fun even in a pandemic, but also as the changes occurred, right? We started out the year with no masks and everything very normal. And then you could see as the year progressed, the interventions put in place for infection control. One of the other things I wanted to note was the staff here had a mock Tim Hortons drive-through in February. And it was very well received by the residents who thought it was cute the way they had the tuck shop set up as a drive-through. It was so successful, they did one again last week, only this time when we went to Tim Hortons to pick up the supplies. The owners of the local Tim Hortons here in Durham, the McGilverys, very kindly donated the product. And they also gave the program staff an apron and a Tim Hortons visor to wear. So it even looked more authentic this time around.
Very nice.
I think I continue on talking about Undercare community risks. We had a written complaint during the reporting period, so I just wanted to talk about that briefly. Just to give a little prelude, I think everybody's getting tired of all the rules. And the complaint itself was related to the setup in the dining room. With infection control practices, we are required to what we call cohort residents in the dining room. So we try to keep roommates together, or at least bathroom mates, or people in the same wing, so that if we ever did have an infection, at least it's hoped we could contain it to one room, or at the very least one wing. And this particular complaint was related to seating in the dining room. There were two residents that wanted to sit together. However, because they reside on different wings in the home, we were not able to accommodate that. I personally spoke to both residents who understood where we were coming from, although they were still not necessarily happy about it. Further to that, just last week, we received a written complaint that was actually sent to Public Health, the Minister of Long-Term Care. Jen received a copy, as well as the executive directors at both Bruce Lee Haven and myself, from the same family member. Again, related to current restrictions, you know, the right for residents to see their family. She mentioned the dining room issue again. The fact that outings continue to be restricted, indoor visits continue to be restricted. She had some comments about the third-party oversight we are now required to have, and basically seen it as inequality against the seniors. Both Public Health, Dr. Aura and Jen responded. Again, I think what we're just seeing is some fatigue. They see Grey County now as a green area, and why can't we get opened up again? And we are talking about opening up indoor visits again, so we will see where that goes. But just wanted to highlight that there was a written complaint during the reporting period, but also since that time. Any questions?
Any questions from committee members? I mean, I think, Karen, all the steps that you're taking is for the greater good. And I think, what was Dr. Era's response? Can you highlight what the response was from Dr. Era?
Yes, just give me 1 minute here. I did have it printed. He talked about the first wave and having different waves of the pandemic. He acknowledged the concerns. He talked about the health unit working with the long-term care homes to ensure a balanced approach and opening as fast as we can yet safely. So I think the issue there is opening things safely. Everybody, when I say everybody, the medical world is worried about the new variant, and it's much more contagious. If you thought COVID was contagious, the variant is even more so. So we're just trying to be cautious of that opening too soon and being back into a third wave.
Well, I know the committee appreciates your efforts in trying to keep everybody safe, and we can't, you know, you see the horror stories that have occurred in some long-term care facilities, and you know, we've had what, one positive case and one false positive, I think, throughout a whole pandemic. So, you know, I can't, you know, say how thankful we are for, you know, all the work of, you know, our long-term care staff in Grey County. And I think, you know, certainly the committee may want to speak to this later, but, you know, on the news last night, I was, you know, watching, and it was just so negative on long-term care. And, you know, after reading, you know, our reports, and, you know, I had such a good feeling of the job everyone is doing in our facilities. It just, it wasn't reflective of what the newscast, you know, was reporting on long-term care. So I don't know what we do about that, but I think we should do something. Okay, thanks. Okay, Karen, any other questions of Karen?
No, but Jennifer has something to say.
Oh, I was just going to move us along to the next step, but if there's questions, that's okay.
Yeah, I apologize, committee members. I'm freezing up a little bit here. So anyways, if there's a pause, I am having some freeze ups. So Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And there was a couple of sections that it seems like we glazed past, and they're covered in our COVID update that in the report that comes next. And now that we're a year in, it's starting to be a little bit more difficult to keep some of these things separate and not have them overlap. So Dana is going to give a summary of the stakeholders report, and in particular, the Ministry of Labor inspection, which will explain Karen's attire for the day.
So good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members.
Good morning.
Good morning. I do want to provide you with an update, in particular on the Ministry of Labor. They did an on-site audit of compliance, and that occurred at Lee Manor on December 18th, 2020. The inspector reviewed various areas of the home with Lee Manor representatives, both our IPAC representative and Joint Health and Safety. It included a review of donning and doffing and screening in our processes, including IPAC areas. And at that time in December, no resulting orders were issued. But since that report, as you know, a lot of things have changed with our variant of concern and evolving circumstances. We have had one written, since that report's been written, rather, the Ministry of Labor arrived at Rockwood Terrace on March the 5th. And as a result, they completed what they're calling a Stay Safe All Day campaign to address transmission of COVID in the workplace. As you know, that's certainly been an area of concern with the Ministry of Labor. From that time, they did issue 2 orders to the home. And again, reflecting some changes from the December report to now, they identified they wanted to ensure that all workers wear eye protection, and hence Karen's new eye protection wear. And that is when they're within 2 meters of an unmasked person. And as you know, we do have unmasked residents. So this was certainly something that we identified as an area that we were improving. As a matter of fact, I was at Rockwood that morning, and we put on our plan, as we did with all the homes, that we were going to increase eye protection with our intent to have it fully operationalized by March 12th. We ended up doing it the next day, that day and very next. And as I worked with some of the other homes, that has been operationalized. But again, I think that order of compliance was as a direct result as we're seeing the variant of concern. So we are moving along with that order, as well as we identified there was an order of ensuring staff remain 2 meters distance away from one another, whether they're on the clock or not. This certainly is something, as we've identified, of fatigue, but I think in general, in my review of the homes as well, that there is a great deal of compliance. There are the odd times, whether it be in their break area, etc. So that has resulted in a bit of enhanced auditing, a bit more signage, maybe moving signage in a different area. And again, just reinforcing with staff that we still have a little way to go, so to continue to do so. So within those 2 orders, we have been able to operationalize it in rather rapid speed. So, and again, it's certainly a sign of the times, and we can't wait till we're all vaccinated indeed. So working with our stakeholders and partners, but I was really pleased that the IPAC, with minimal effort, like with minimal review, those are only the two areas that has been identified. There is a great deal of IPAC compliance within these homes, and a lot of great effort. Any questions?
Thanks, Dina. And it was certainly obvious in the report, the effort that had already been put into IPAC. And I hope Karen doesn't fog up too much with all that attire on. Councillor Burley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question to you. You made a statement in your report, which was good, by the way, about some of the residents not having masks. Could you just further comment on that? I think I know why, but just a further comment, please.
Yeah, I think in terms of the order, and again, recognizing that the Ministry of Labor is reviewing this as a workplace as opposed to a home. And so they come with a different lens in the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. So when they review sort of the support of the worker, recognizing that the resident does not have a mask on. And so certainly masks are available for residents, and they are encouraged in certain areas, but oftentimes the residents can't wear a mask. The circumstances don't allow a mask, but they are available and provided. And you do see some residents wearing them, but there are times indeed, this being their home, that they aren't wearing a mask. And mind you, our staff are well protected with the appropriate PPE. Does that answer your question, sir?
Dwight, did that answer your question?
Yes, I just, it does answer my question. I sort of knew the answer anyway, but I'm just thinking for public listening to a comment like that, maybe they don't understand what you're actually referring to. And that's all I was trying to say.
Okay. Any other questions for Dina? Okay, well, thanks again, Dina.
Okay, thank you. So we will wrap up this report with 2 short colorette stories. Shannon is going to share one from Grey Gables, and Karen has one from Rockwood. So Shannon.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Okay, thank you. So one of the many colorette stories from Grey Gables is the homemade Christmas cards that each of the residents received from the school children and the broader community. It is so nice to see the spirit of kindness and how it touched each and every one of our residents. They really enjoyed it. I know the school children got a kick out of making the cards and sending them as well. So it's really nice to see and really nice to receive as well. I'll pass it on to Karen.
Okay, thank you. Karen, go ahead.
Thank you. One of the weekends in December, staff were feeling kind of down about the whole situation. So the registered staff on duty, the RN, decided they needed something to lift their spirits. So she created, and I'm going to hold it up, I don't know if you can see it very well, but this document, and had all the staff that were working sign it with some little words of encouragement, because her thought was if staff here were feeling that way, probably staff at other care communities were also feeling that way. So she had everybody sign the paper and then proceeded to fax these to all the long-term care homes in Ontario. And it was nice to see some responses from care communities who were happy and thankful for the little uplifting messages and return some uplifting messages as well. So it's kind of a cool thing for the RN to take that on her own.
Thank you, Karen. It's wonderful to see the care communities reaching out and supporting one another. Okay. So if that's it for the report, we have the long-term care operational report. We'll call the question. All in favor of receiving it? And that is carried. Thank you. We now have report LTCR CM 0721 regarding long-term care COVID-19 status update. Be received for information. Can I have a mover, please, to get that on the floor? Moved by Councillor Woodbury and seconded by Councillor Robinson. Jennifer, are you starting this one?
I am. I'll take us through. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will try to summarize some of the items we've already talked about a little bit this morning. So we're at the year mark, which is really incredible. And I think we'll all be, we need to prepare ourselves for 2 weeks of reminders of 1-year anniversaries of all the things that changed in our lives. The long-term care support group has created posters that are going out to all of the homes, and they're large posters with some pictures that we've collected over the year, just acknowledging all of the team members and their efforts and really saying thank you for everyone showing up with courage every day, even when they're tired, to just really appreciate those efforts. And so those posters will be going out later this week to each of the care communities. So since we last met, some of the updates. So vaccination rollout continues to be really exciting and happening really very quickly. 528 designated care partners and staff members for our 3 homes have had their first vaccine, which is really, really great news. And the first week of March, the clinics were held at each of the care communities for the residents receiving their second dose of vaccine. So that's really great. Surveillance testing continues to be a challenge that we're operating. And we're operationalizing. So we are transitioning into the rapid testing. So that's rapid antigen testing, moving away from the PCR test, which is the diagnostic test that was never really meant to be a surveillance tool. And so we're moving away from that. Just wanted to note for committee that part of the ministry directives allowed for a rural, remote, and northern community exemption that the homes could apply to the province. And that allowed a long-term care home to do 1 PCR test and 1 antigen test. And it was really based on human resources, access to supplies, that kind of thing. And while some of our colleagues in Grey Bruce have opted for the rural remote exemption, the 3 Grey County homes opted not to do the rural exemption at this time. The science behind the rural or the antigen testing, the rapid antigen testing 3 times in a 7-day is really strong for surveillance. And so as long as we can operationalize it, that's the approach we wanted to start with. So we are rolling that out. All 3 homes are doing rapid testing for the designated care partners. And this week and next week are rolling out the rapid testing for all staff members. The mandatory third-party oversight, so it was called 24-hour security, and then it's been changed, the title's been changed to mandatory third-party oversight. That has been implemented on February 22nd and is being provided by Fairmount Security. Education has been provided to those oversight staff, and their role will include oversight along with active screening when necessary. And it has caused some designated care partners some concern, feeling that having them feel like they were criminals and we needed to have security at the door. And so we've tried to reframe it for folks that that I think really more it's the intention of the province to make sure that long-term care operators have their screening, their active screening in place. And by having a third-party oversight, that's ensuring that that's happening. And so it's not about the visitor or the staff member, it's about the operators making sure that we're doing what we need to be doing. And that seems to have helped some people kind of get their brain wrapped around it. Visiting and designated care partners. So our region returned to the yellow and is now in green. We continue to, so general visits and window visits are permitted during these categories. However, while we were trying to roll out rapid testing, we weren't ready to just open up to general visits. So we did reopen the window visits, especially since the weather got to be a little bit nicer. And we continue to suspend the general visits. However, that's something we're looking at, hoping to have a plan in place by the end of next week to allow general visits again. We are waiting for the province to update the visiting guidelines. They have not been updated since before Christmas. And a lot has changed since before Christmas with the variant of concern and now rapid testing availability. And so I think that those need to be updated to help us make sure we're doing general visits in the safest way possible. The designated care partner was affected by the lockdown. During lockdown, only one DCP per resident could visit at a time, and that's been increased to 2 at a time. So 2 people can come in and see their loved one. We spoke a little bit about continuing with our evaluation collaboration groups, and we're working on a research project with the designated care partner program, and we'll be providing some feedback to the committee on that. We continue to actively recruit staff, and there is a partnership continuing with the Y Georgian College and Grey County Economic and Development in an opportunity to support emergency support workers and care support assistants. And hopefully we'll have an update on that at our next meeting. The province did release information that they've invested $115 million to train 8,200 new personal support workers in an accelerated program. Georgian College is one of 24 colleges to offer this accelerated course starting in April. And the registration opened on Monday, March 8th. Oh, yesterday. This tuition-free opportunity is expected to take only 6 months to complete rather than the 8 months. So we're hopeful that that generates some interest in working in long-term care. Outbreak on February 22nd, Public Health declared a gastrointestinal outbreak at Grey Gables. Outbreak measures were quickly initiated and the team worked closely with Public Health. A small number of residents and staff on the Pine Ridge home area displayed one symptom only. The affected area was closed, tray service provided to the entire wing, and to reduce the risk of spread, DCPs were reduced to 1 per resident. All other DCPs received communication and IPAC reminders, and the outbreak was declared over on February 27th. And I will just note that in partnership with Public Health and under their direction, there was very quick action, as there always is in any suspected outbreak, but really enhanced measures around in isolating residents to their room, tray service in their room, with the potential risk of the variant. And we know that symptoms in the elderly can differ with COVID than other age groups. So it was taken really seriously, and the swabs were taken. And once it was confirmed not to be COVID, then we were able to ease back into more normal practice gastro outbreak protocols. In our other report, we talk about some indeterminate test results. So there were a few other situations where the homes were in enhanced outbreak measures while we had to have people retested because of indeterminate results. And they were always deemed to be negative in the end. Funding on February 19th, additional COVID funding was announced as part of the ministry's ongoing effort to assist with prevention and containment. The funding model used by the ministry has been updated to increase the per bed allocation from $200 to $360. The new funding model also anticipates that homes with active and resolved COVID outbreaks incur more expenses. And so they're accommodating those additional costs. These increases provide additional support to the homes, and the ministry transferred 2 tranches of funding for January and February. And the amounts received by each home are listed there. Partnerships, we continue to work in partnerships both regionally and locally. The Grey Bruce Long-Term Care Committee and healthcare partners continue to meet regularly. Long-term care homes also attend a public health-led meeting every 2 weeks. We have regular, lots of partnership, lots of work and strategies to implement COVID education resources, managing and monitoring our supplies. And we continue to be really grateful for the support around with the CAO and the SMT group and committee and council and our neighbors. So as we reach that year mark, we may have some fatigue, but we can have a lot to be grateful for, the support that we continue to get. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Bravo on a job well done to everyone. Okay, are there questions from the committee members? Come on, there's got to be some. Jennifer, the funding that the province has announced, does that prompt our enhanced surveillance testing that we're doing? Because I thought when I read your report, I thought it was great that we're doing the enhanced surveillance. I'm just wondering if the provincial funding is covering all that, with third-party oversight required and everything that goes along with it.
Thank you. Joanna is here with us on the call. So far, the funding has covered all of the enhanced measures that we've had to take over the months, depending on the circumstances. And Joanna, there was specific funding for the third-party oversight, yes?
That is correct. Yes, they've flowed us $54,000 per home. That's all we've received so far, and there's been no indication of how much they'll provide. However, they did say that they will cover the cost. So we're going on the assumption that the whole cost will be covered.
Okay, thanks, Joanna.
You're welcome.
Okay, not seeing any other questions. All in favor of the report? That is carried. We have the resolution from the Regional Municipality of Halton regarding the implementation and recommendations from the Long-Term Care COVID-19 Commission be supported. Can I have a mover to get that on the floor, please? Moved by Barb and seconded by Christine. Discussion. Christine, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm very pleased that we have this resolution before us, and it certainly pertains to AMO's final submission to the Long-Term Care COVID-19 Commission, and it's entitled Improving the Long-Term Care Outbreak Response in Ontario. So I'm happy that the resolution is before us, but I really feel that this is an opportunity where we could, as a committee, and then ultimately endorsed by Grey County Council, a resolution that is specific to Grey County in terms of the work, the most successful work that our director and our executive directors and staff are supporting our 3 care communities, and also have an opportunity to address each of the 49 recommendations that have been categorized everywhere from vision of long-term care, leadership and culture, to funding, to public health measures. So I was wondering if this committee would be so inclined to actually have a made in Grey resolution that can come forward, and whether that is an opportunity to dovetail it with the COVID report that is coming forward in our next meeting, and whether we can table this recommendation from Halton, but also have a motion that would come forward that I'd certainly support, and I certainly look to another member of this committee to second the recommendation. So be specifically addressing what these recommendations mean to Grey County. Thank you.
Okay, other thoughts from members of the committee? And I guess, I would look to Jennifer and Kim with Councillor Robinson's suggestion if there's merit and benefit in, there's two parts to this. I'm not sure if we should just be focusing on the Halton right now and then bring that up under new business, but we've kind of had the start of the discussion. Kim,
Yeah, I think certainly I'm very interested in the committee's comments about the points that Councillor Robinson has made, and if there's something specific that we want to put forward to someone about Grey County's long-term care requirements, I think there's value in having that discussion. The Halton resolution does two things. It supports AMO's position and the recommendations from the long-term care committee. It's also asking for FCM to continue some advocacy work that they're doing towards the federal government for additional funding for long-term care. So my recommendation would be that there is some merit to supporting the Halton recommendation just because of that funding advocacy piece. But certainly if there's other parts to this, or we want to work on a separate resolution, that's definitely something we can talk about.
okay. Other members' comments before I go back to Christine? Go ahead, Christine.
Okay, so absolutely, I completely understand the idea of supporting Halton Region's resolution, and I acknowledge the call to action that they've put forward in terms of engaging FCM and also endorsing AMO's recommendations. I feel that it would be important for this committee and ultimately council to consider, and I certainly would appreciate if this committee would endorse the recommendations that are put forward in the AMO submission. And then if there's any additional identification through long-term care staff and within our three care communities that we need to add into our own recommendation. I feel that's important. So certainly the support through Halton Region, but really think this is a grand opportunity that we can have a recommendation coming from Grey County. I'm not necessarily looking at circulating it to all the Ontario municipalities. I feel that there's merit in obviously circulating to our Premier, the Minister of Health, Minister of Long-Term Care, the MPP representation for Grey County, and perhaps even Bruce County. But to get our story out and certainly be out front in terms of supporting the recommendation from AMO. Thank you. So I would, at the appropriate time, move a motion to that regard. And I would respectfully request support through a seconder and ultimately a positive vote. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Barb, go ahead, Barb.
So thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and certainly I appreciate Councillor Robinson's comments. We should never overlook an opportunity to celebrate our staff and the fabulous job that they have done over this very, very trying times, and the leadership role actually they have shown in terms of the care processes and results that they've been able to achieve in our long-term care situation. So I fully understand and appreciate and would second a motion that Councillor Robinson puts forward to that end. But I also agree that this is an opportunity for us to add our name and support to the AMO, the recommendations from AMO, and push forward for further funding at a national level for our long-term care homes. I think long-term care, while we're very, very close to and concerned with mostly our operations with our 3 long-term care homes, but we have also, as a council, agreed to support as much as we can the other long-term care homes in our region that are also doing a good job. And I think we've had a lot of negativity that has come through. Our chair had referenced the news report last night about long-term care and how disastrous it has been in some areas, but not all areas. I mean, it has been, I think this is a time where we start looking forward with a positive outlook on things that we have been able to do and can now celebrate and move that forward as a role model, I guess, or as an indication of a job really well done. So I'm happy to support Councillor Robinson's motion to craft a resolution to that effect. But at the same time, I feel very strongly that we do need to focus on stronger advocacy role from FCM and to look at those 49 recommendations from AMO with regard to universal long-term care practices and protocols.
Okay, thank you, Barb. I think I will certainly, I would like to look to our clerk for a second, but I would like to, just have the discussion right now on the Halton, and then look to Heather as to Councillor Robinson's kind of notice of motion. So Heather, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Mackey. And I agree. I think we're dealing with two separate items here. I think we're dealing with the resolution from Halton Region, which really does focus on that advocacy and support. And then the other, if I might recommend that, I think bringing back a fulsome picture to the committee on Grey County's efforts in general, followed then or included in that report is the information or the resolution that I think Councillor Robinson and Councillor Klumpus are speaking to. So rather than doing a motion today, it would be bringing back a report to the committee that really provides a real story to what the county and specifically our long-term care staff have done over the last 12 months and showcasing the great efforts that have happened, and then including in that the motion that Councillor Robinson was speaking to.
Okay, thank you, Heather. So right now we will we'll just speak to this motion. I think Brian, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, I agree with everything you said, Christine. I just think when it comes to the Halton resolution, I think we should support that. And like, I'm just thinking about what happens at the other end of this. When the government looks at hundreds of resolutions coming in, hammering away at the same thing, it causes them to listen. If we send in a separate one from Grey County, and there's a separate one from Simcoe and another one from somewhere else, I'm not sure you get the traction by the time it gets to the government, whether you get the people to sit down and have that discussion. So I would certainly be in favor of supporting the Halton resolution for sure. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Any other questions in regards to the Halton resolution? All right, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. So I just don't want to lose sight of the other conversation. So before we move on, and Heather had mentioned on how this should proceed. Did the mover, I mean, we don't have necessarily a motion, but we certainly get the gist of what you're looking for, Christine and Barb. And I'm just wondering if the two of you would be willing to have further conversation with Kim and Jennifer in response to Heather's comments in moving this forward and bringing a report. Christine, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really appreciate all the dialogue around this and the emphasis on just supporting overall the recommendations contained in AMO's report and the advocacy heightened through FCM. And the support that we already provided through a recommendation to council to support the Halton Region resolution. I feel it's important to have a made in gray or a color it example of a resolution here. We have 3 care communities. So I would put a motion forward, is certainly in the words of our clerk, who's very good at wordsmithing and procedure, to bring back a report that is dealing with Grey County efforts in showcasing I guess the procedures taken during COVID, and that we could wrap into that a recommendation for supporting AMO's 49 recommendations. Clerk Morrison, could you help with the language on that, please? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Working on it, yes. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Robinson, I think you're looking for staff to bring back a report on the Grey County efforts related to long-term care and the pandemic response.
Yes.
I'm wondering if it might be most.
Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm wondering if it might be most useful if, as staff, we spent a bit of time on those 49 recommendations and really brought back a report to this committee that spoke about the ones that we feel are specific, would have a specific impact to our operations. I'm very conscious of the fact that, you know, all of these long-term care homes all faced very different set of circumstances when it came time to meet the challenges of COVID. The structure of those homes, the location of those homes, the resources available to those homes. And so those AMO recommendations are meant to really cut across a really broad landscape. So there may be things in there that are less relevant to Grey County operations, but I think there are some. And I think it would be good for this committee and council to be aware of the ones that we feel would be really critical. If you can't do 49, we'd really like you to do these 5 or something like that. And just to put a little bit more perspective around it, would that be a useful report to receive?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So do we
And with
need a
that, Mr. Chair, I
resolution, or
think-
is this,
oh.
are we just giving direction? Heather, do we need a resolution? Are we just giving direction for staff to bring a report back and then the committee can make the determination from there?
I think we'll take a resolution because Councillor Robin has suggested a motion that staff bring it back a report on Grey County efforts related to long-term care and the response, pandemic response, and the recommendations contained in the Long-Term Care Commission. And if with the committee's blessing, I will tweak this offline, but that's the general gist of the motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So that's moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Barb. Any discussion around the motion? I mean, I do think, you know, for our long-term care, you know, for all of our staff and our senior staff, you know, we're so proud of the efforts, and we want to just be able to help in any way we can in forwarding, you know, your efforts and, you know, advocating in whatever way possible to make positive changes going forward. So we look forward to that report, and we'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We now have a closed meeting matter, and that the Long-Term Care Committee of Management now under closed session pursuant to Section 239 sub 2 of the Municipal Act to discuss 1, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local employees, and that is a pay grid review. Can I have a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Leary and seconded by Councillor Burley. All in favor of going into closed? That is carried. And discussion, is there, the next meeting is scheduled for May 11th. Is there anything else that any committee member needs to bring up before we adjourn? Seeing nothing. All right, thanks everybody. Good discussion today, and look forward to seeing you all on Thursday. We stand adjourned.
Oh, we need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. You're too quick.
Every place is different. I thought the chair could
Yeah.
just adjourn. Can I have a mover to adjourn, please? Moved by Councillor Burley and seconded by Councillor Clumpus. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Heather. We now
Have a good
stand
day.
adjourned.